Good evening, folks. It's Poms from a very, 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 very windy North Devon. Warm, good fishing weather, but to be fair, I'm not getting out and out at the moment. Far too old for this kind of stuff. So hopefully this is beaming in. We've had several power cuts today, so it could go horribly wrong. And as all of my live feeds start off, I panic that it's not working. A couple of little icons have come up. Now the next thing is whether or not, just to go there, Charlie, thanks. The comments are good. Trevor, good evening. Galen, all the way from Canada. How you doing? I bet it's snowy there, isn't it, Galen? What's the weather like? Paul, good evening. I'll let a few people bob in and then got something to show you because I've been doing some photographs and I just think it might be interesting a minute. So I'll let a few. I've got the prize for tonight's draw. So all go. Amanda, good afternoon or good evening. Darren, how you doing? Keith Powell, long time no speak. Keith's diligently working behind the scenes for the first edition, 1st of January, if all goes to plan, of the inaugural Catch More Fish online magazine we're doing. So it's really coming. Here's Will, he's here. Oh, Galen's saying it feels like minus 26. Will be our guest, beaming in from Canada, Ontario. So that will be coming in about 20 minutes. Steve Thompson, how you doing? Stephen Howlett, how you doing? James will be speaking after Christmas. Loads of bits and pieces going on behind the scenes. So hopefully a few people will come in, and I've got a couple of things to talk about. But the first thing I'll do is I'm going to show you tonight's prize. Now, if you want to be entered into this free draw, you've got to just send yes to Pallatrax's Facebook Messenger. Hopefully that makes sense. Paul Bilcock, how you doing, sir? So tonight's prize, nice pair of blades, some size 4 wide gapes, because I'm going to talk about those, and a light for your hat, a cap light. So there you go. So if you'd like to win that little bundle of goodies, all you got to do is ping yes to the Pallatrax Facebook Messenger page. So good luck, and we'll draw that in about half an hour, 3/4 an hour. So there we go. Right, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to whiz this round because I've been doing some photographs for the magazine today, and I just think if you haven't seen this, you may well have, because it's my go-to tactic. But I will whiz the camera around. And let me see how I can get in. Hang on. No, that's the most I can. Hang on, folks. That should be all right. So, this is because the demo I'm doing. Hi, Tony. Neil Watson, good evening, sir. So, actually, what's interesting, I don't know if you can see, but you see how all the bubbles collect on monofilament. So I say there's all this thing about being unobtrusive, and some things you just can't help. So all I've done is I've wrapped for the method photos for Catch More Fish, just sitting in a pile of food. Your hook link is basically covered. There's my jungle bait, which I've stripped off the membrane. Oh, I think I'm back. I'm back. Hopefully I'm back. Dear me. Colin Cannon, season's greetings to you. Season's greetings to everybody. Ian, you made it back in time. There was me thinking, don't know if it's working. I do apologise, but there's the storm from hell going on down here. So is it working? Can anybody see me? Everything's gone horribly wrong. It's saying slow connection. I do apologise, folks. There's nothing I can do about this one. I'm useless on the techie front. So I hope this is still working. But so I'll just carry on. I'll persevere. And see if we get anywhere. So basically, good evening, Andre. How you doing all the way from Slovakia? Any snow yet, Andre? Are you freezing over there like they are in Canada? We're just wet, windy, wild, typical England, to be fair. No wonder why the Romans packed up and left. So I'm not too sure if this is coming through, but I will find out very soon, no doubt. Yep, it looks like I am. Hi, Ian. Thank you for that. Hit and miss, Pom. Yeah. Oh, I can hear you. I can see you, Matt, behind you. Good to see you, Matt Woodman. Long time no see. Yes, I'm back. Let's hope it keeps going for us. So yeah, so I was just showing, you know, the stone system as I developed it. I guess that's the best way to describe it. But the key element here is obviously you've got the stone, which is the delivery system, which is just a natural stone. And then I've got my fully loaded method mix, which is complete food source. You can actually add other attractants in there when you're making it up. But I have caught so many fish, and this system gets knocked by the modern narrative so many times that it's a match tactic, it's a noddy tactic, and all like this kind of stuff. Oh, it started to snow in. Well done, Andre. Send us some pictures. Send us a picture of snow carp. Good evening, Rich Shaw. Season's greetings. So yeah, so what you've got food source, which you can obviously manipulate with attractant. You've got complete food source, which is literally screaming out to the fish's olfactory system. Very good rig in the LQ rig, and so basically we know that. And wherever you put it, that's basically what it's going to turn out like. Even in weed, it'll come out like that. So bonjour to you, Paul. And this is not a fin or a fish, but this is just give you a bit of an idea, and I can get rid of it off the... So when fish start battering it and bits and pieces under toe cracks off, that's what you get. Basically you just get all of this food source, it's moving around, and because I've mixed dried in there, that'll pull it up and down. And so yeah, so you've just got that stone, which is totally, you know, nothing they can sense out of the ordinary. And I can promise you folks, it's not contrived, it's not gimmick, it's the after all my years experience in shops and in the trade, I can't beat that. I know it's always going to appear contrived, but there's not a lot. Why nod you when it works exactly and exactly. Ryan Jones, how you doing? Rusty, long time no speak. Season's greeting and all that stuff. So yeah, so that was just because I was doing the tank. I know I've talked about it lots of times, and I will get that tank moved very shortly. Let me just show you what. So that's all it is. Let me just move my light. So that is literally running stones on the gamma up to a buffer bead.
It's gone.
And then you've got just a jungle which is taking the size off. LQ rig. Jobs are good. And don't get much more complicated than that, but I can tell you why it works. Because if you believe me, and that is a stone, so that is what we're actually fishing on. That the fish can detect, which is a lot more than there you go. But any questions, just ask away. Hi Anthony, good evening. So we've got Will join us. Oh, now I'm getting all covered. We've got Will joining us shortly, as several more new people are here. This is tonight's prize draw. All you got to do is ping yes to Pallatrax Facebook Messenger page, and you'll be entered into the free draw. So you've got a pair of braid blades, some size 4, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute, and then a cap light. So there we go. Ping yes over. I couldn't leave home without it. What's that, Rich? The stone system, even when you go ravings. Right, so let me just come back round. My little studio here in the hallway is all gone horribly wrong because I've been doing these photographs and never got the time to sort. Hey! I'm trying to hold my camera on a bit of grassy stuff. So right, any questions? As always, just feel free to ask away. Don't be shy. Don't hold back. It's a genuine opportunity. One thing I do know 100% is I don't know it all, but there's a few bits and pieces I'd like to think I can bring your way. Good evening, Simon Nash. Welcome. So yeah, do field questions, and say when Will comes on. Just pull this over. You see right at my nostrils there. Didn't realise that. That's just another tank, so I'm going to show you that in a minute. So I'm going to do a couple of things. The first thing is I'm going to say to all of you, Merry Christmas. Tony Turner, just in time. Yeah, a little rum and coke, a little cheeky rum and coke. Before I go on another diet, will this one work? Right, so how many folk here perch fish? I know Paul the perch is here. Now this is the winter wonder bait for me. The old king prawn peeled. I have caught some proper. To be quite honest, lots of things eat this. I've known the odd carp to take a bit of, again, it's naturals, isn't it? So, but perch love them, and this is a way to, who's that? Chelsea Smith, good evening. First time getting on the live, order a hoodie and bottoms the other day, can't wait for them to come. That's fantastic. Welcome, Chelsea. Let's say it's a friendly place. Any questions? Will you have to wait? We'll have to wait. I've got to get this bit out of the way and then you're on. Don't hold your horses. Natalie, how you doing? Hope you have the best Christmas possible. You know where we are. The door is always open and the kettle is always on. So, yes, and Chelsea, like I was saying, any questions, just ask away. It's just a group of anglers. There's no hoity-toity. Nothing's contrived. Obviously, I've got my opinions, but they're just mine. Any questions, go for it. But here we go. So, I'm just going to show you how easy it is. I don't know if that's... Let me turn my camera around, see if it looks better that way. That's better, isn't it? So there you go. Nice, juicy, succulent... Right, so these are the ones I have. So there you go. You can get them at all good stores, and there's lots of different manufacturers that manufacture them. Right, so this is how I fish it, and it is very different. I fish basically, surprise, surprise, the stone system. So I've got £7. Well, I'll show you here actually, because I just made the rig. So this is what I'm using. So it's £7, 3.2 kilo gamma edge fluorocarbon. Now, when you've got perch haven't got teeth like a pike. So hang on, let me just try and get that in. This is not working at the moment. Let me just try and change a few things here. Right, bear with me, folks. Not exactly Joe Rogan, is it? So yes, so with fluorocarbon, it's very abrasion resistant. Yeah, that's what Tinny says as well, Ian. She's a fan of them. Season's greetings to you, John. Matthew Rice, no. Yes, you've missed the competition, unfortunately, Matt. So yes, I'm literally fishing £7 gamma fluorocarbon. As I say, it's very abrasion resistant. That's all you've got to worry about when it comes to perch. So I'm really fining down. Now, just a swivel, and then down to a size 4. Ooh. One day someone will show me how to do all this properly. A size 4 wide gape, and it needs to be. I know it's a bit. It sounds like a big hook, but you're going to be going for big foot perch here. You know, £3-4 plus. Now, the main thing is getting this baby, and what you've got to make sure is you've got to keep the gape open. So you've got to literally shape this. So let's see if I can do this. So you want as much of the hook exposed. So you're going to go in, I can't really see what I'm doing here. Going in, you're going to feed it a bit around, a bit like when you feed ragworm. And you're really going to, hopefully you can see that. So that gape has got to be, and then all you've got to do next is form a little overhand loop like that, pull it over the top and trap it on. So you can nip that off if you want, and so you don't have to have the biggest piece of the world, but you'll be surprised how these big perch will just come along and engulf that. So that little overhand loop there, that will hold it all in place nice and firm, because you don't want that hook spinning round and blocking off the gape. Now, what do I do next then? The thing that most people don't think of doing, and I'll explain why. Because it's all about the food source, it's all about the ingredients. I will then move this back a bit. I will then take a bit of method. And you go, hang on a second, it's perch, why are you fishing method? So I'm going to wrap that round like I normally do. And all fingers and thumbs. Bear with me because my lights are all over the place tonight. And there you go. It might look horrible. What we're going to do is we'll put it in the tank. But as long as this cannot go back above there, it should not tangle, even though it's very fine fluorocarbon. And so I will plop it out, cast it out, Now, what I don't understand is, why's that perch? Why is that floating? My shrimp is floating. Well, we'll leave that and see what happens. But why have I got method? That looks quite good floating there, but it's not meant to float, folks. I don't know why that is. I don't know, because that's just been in a glass of... Oh, that's really unusual. Well, there you go. Pop up. Let me try and zoom in a bit. So, yes. I have no clue why that is floating. And so why have I got that method? Oh, hang on. Oh, hang on. That's better. Method mix. And what it is, this is to track the silvers. No, it's not frozen. It's defrosted. I don't know. We'll see anyhow. Did the loop go over the eye of the hook? Yes, you can do that as well. Keep it all tight in there, Ian, then nothing will move. You can't see this very well. Let me just try and... Like I say, what you want is that gape. Because if not, it won't... Where are we? There we go. If not, you close that gape. I see loads of people doing it in sea fishing especially. They close the gape. And in doing so, one second, having all kinds of fun here with this. This is all going, I think really I've got my camera around the wrong way. That's what I've done. Oh. Anyway, so why have I got the method? Silvers. Silvers come in there and it works, I promise you folks. You can use method, especially if you film it with something like gamma or shrimp. That'll explode and it goes all the way up and down through the water columns. Bringing in the silvers, what follows the silvers. I know there's an area of assumption, but we do know it works. And it's really good when you get it going up and down, because then you can draw a lure through it as well, like a little jelly or an ondex or whatever. And because the perch and the silvers are in the water columns, you will be able to nick them. Now, a lot of people just don't bait, don't think about it. They don't think about why would you want to have ground bait in your swim. Get those silvers and the perch will be hot on their heels, I promise you. Sometimes it's almost instantaneous, this. And I don't. One of the things I don't, hang on a second, let me go back to me. One of the things I don't do, a lot of people with perch fishing, because I'm not a fan of some of the tactics obviously out there, especially letting fish run with the bait, especially predatory fish, because they will inhale deeps, whether it be an eel, whether it be a pike, a zander, a perch. And I'm hitting, I tend to use, you can do it, float ledger, you can do it, but I tend to use a really, really fine, it's called a Maver Abyss. It's a really, really, almost nothing test curve rod. And I fish it on the quiver, and you'll get a massive slap round. And I've got people who are sitting there and they, oh, you've got to let it run, I'm hitting it straight away. And I've caught so many fish. I fished with a very well-known angler once. He refused to, he put 5p on his spool and he said what's going to happen is the line's got to strip off, it's going to fall off, the 5p is going to fall off, and that's when I hit it. And I'm going, why? Oh, well, I'm waiting for the bite to develop. And I'm thinking, well, what does that even mean? So hit it. As soon as that wax round, you hit it quick. Yes, like I say, going back to Paul's idea, it could well be the fact that it's still frozen. There you go. But I think you hopefully get the idea. But this time of year, when you're sitting out there, it is really worth doing that. There's some huge perch in this country now. Back in the 70s, they nearly died out. We had this disease that decimated the perch. Yes, exactly. That's what Paul's saying, is that you want to get the bait fish in and the movement gets the perch excited. Exactly. And so you draw lures through it. You just... bish that tactic. We do the same for pike, put ground bait, a sloppy, mixy ground bait, and get the silvers going, and then, it's just to be expected for the predatory fish to turn up. Andy Turner just got signal on out on the bank. What have I missed? Nothing. Just me. The competition, if you want to get entered for tonight's draw, grip size 4, which is what I use for my perch fishing, a cap lamp and a pair of Brady blades. Just ping yes to the Facebook Messenger page. Right, before we go to, as soon as the tip rounds, I'm hitting it exactly, Anthony. That's the point, it's the bite, and people go, oh, the fish take it this way and that. But that's all based on assumption. And I can promise you, I've sat there with, like I say, well-known anglers, and they have this you know, preconceived. It's almost like an old wives' tale, a myth, and they don't hit the bite, and then they either deep hook the fish because the fish has had loads of time and it's now engulfed and inhaled. If you see how a perch inhales a whole bait, and with pike especially, you know, if they, you know, I've seen loads of people dead baits, let them run, and then they wonder why the bait is deep hooked. I mean, I hit, and as soon as I get a bite, I get a bite, but that's just me. Right, hang on a second. This is more aimed at Team Pallatrax members, but don't forget, Team Pallatrax is a free angling community to join. But I've been beavering away, and I promised tonight, because they weren't, it wasn't available last live, and I thought it was. So these are the new blades rods that we have coming as a team exclusive. 2.75 through action. This is the new reel C. I can't quite get it in. There you go. It's a little bit better. Hang on a second. There we go. So what I've done here, I had a design. This is a carbon basically base to the reel seat, and then you've got, like the Alps, you've got aluminium hoods and a double locking nut. Oh, just hit the roof. Full Duplon handle. Didn't go for the different options. This is the handle that you get a really good grip from. Just make sure you see the blank. It's an anti-scratch blank. You've got the Vortex eyes on it, and then at the back, to make it bespoke here, there will be an engraved plate with Team Pallatrax. So they are now on the team exclusive page. There's quite a lot have been pre-ordered. If you do want any, I'm going to do a bigger run. But so yeah, watch out, Team Pallatrax, they're coming. Right, Will, what you've got to do is actually now call me or send me a friend's request or send me an ad thing, or anybody help here? Galen, if you're still there. As soon as you hear Paul saying perch will inhale the bait, but they will spit it out just as quick, so never wait. Exactly. And if you see any underwater footage, and I know I'm probably boring team members because I've discovered a few new people who are doing underwater fishing footage of all kinds of different species, and you see how those perch attack different things. It's amazing, and I would suggest as soon as it's in the mouth, like when I go fly fishing, I would be striking. I don't understand, tell me your opinions. I don't understand why people are waiting for baits to develop, because I don't understand when people say, well, what does that mean? To develop, and it's like, yeah. Right, hopefully we're going to get Will all the way from Ontario, and you can ask him loads of questions. Right, here we go, Will. See if it's going to work. I press, it says adding. We have a slurp while I wait. Oh, come on, folks, everything. I love the underwater fishing. Exactly, Anthony. And the good thing is now, what we had historically is not looking good, Will. What we had historically was obviously some, main brands bringing out their underwater footage and their narrative. Oh, is it happening? Are you there, Will?
Here I am, sir.
There you go. Let me just finish you. Lee Jackson, we've missed all the perch talk. But yeah, this underwater footage we're seeing now, I mean, Will's been involved with it, with Galen out in Canada anyway. But you're seeing the warts and all, you're not seeing the contrived stuff. And so it's really, really eye-opening, because it's blowing a load of the kind of assumptions that we've been told out the water. So welcome, Will. Your first ever live feed guestie, one of many, I hope.
Oh, hopefully so.
Brilliant. So what I'll do is I'll pass it over. Don't be nervous. I don't think you're that kind of disposition anyhow, Will. I think you're a pretty confident guy. But I'll let Will introduce himself. I say he's a team member from Pallatrax, a newer team member, a very experienced guide out in Canada for carp fishing. And over to you, sir.
Well, hello everyone. It's Will from Peterborough Carping Guides. Little plug right there. If you're looking to come to Ontario, Canada, and in particular to the Peterborough and Kawarthas region, I'm the guy to reach out to. I can put you on some incredible Kawartha common carp, as well as some elusive mirrors. We do have a few of them around as well. We do have a wild stock of fish here, and as many of you already are aware, with Galen's underwater footage, we have some very, very powerful torpedo-shaped commons that will beat you to death. And not one fish in 24 hours kind of business. We're talking 10, 20 fish days. It's absolutely insane if you can get them on the rivers. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with this sport over a decade ago now. So I became a diehard carper, so to speak, about a decade ago. So yeah.
What made you get involved with carp fishing? Because obviously it's not really something that's that popular. I mean, it's gaining some traction, but obviously all the other species you have out there. But what made you get attracted towards it?
Well, I guess the way to go about that is to tell you the origin story and tell you about something that I wrote for the Canadian Carp Society, which was my humble beginnings. And it's a story of a gentleman by the name of John the Macaroni Man Belanger, who's no longer with us. He unfortunately passed on just recently. But John was one of the kindest individuals I've ever met, and someone who I would attribute to giving me that sort of first experience with carp that was in a positive light. In my youth, I saw carp quite often, but always looked at it as a fish that I could never catch, right? They were too big. I hooked into one when I was much younger and broke me off, right? I didn't really know what I was doing. It just picked up my worm. I was fishing with a float, the business, and sat me off. So I always saw it as a fish that was just not attainable. And then I was I was 20 years old, and I was walking along at the Peterborough Marina, at Little Lake Marina, and there was a gentleman out on the point, and I was fishing for whatever would bite. I was flipping jigs and such, and I went out to him to speak with him, and I saw him pulling out, one of these massive rods, right? And he's got the line alarm. He's got a massive bucket, and he's just hobbling his way down the shoreline, and plops it down, starts putting bait out with a spalm and with a catapult, and the next thing is he gets the rod out. I'm just thinking, what the hell is he doing, right? I've never seen anybody do this before because, when fishing in the Kawarthas previously, I'd never seen anybody carp fish like this, right? And I hadn't seen the Euro style. And so, I sat down with him for a bit, and we just shot the shit, Pom. And the next thing was his alarm goes off. And I'm just like, what's happening? What is all this, right? What's all this noise and confusion? And he brings in a 23-pound carp, right? And I'm just staring there, just gobsmacked. I'm like, are you serious? And he said, man, listen, he said, you could come out here at nighttime. They really like the nighttime down here at the marina. They gather in this little bay down here. He says, you should definitely come back here. Go grab an 88-cent can of corn, right? It's 88 cents Canadian. I guess that'd be like 40 pence for you, yeah? And he says, go get yourself a can of corn. There you go. Yep, Old Faithful. And he said, go throw in a couple of handfuls, put 3 pieces on a hook, and you'll have one. And sure enough, that night I had my very first carp, 18 pounds it was. And I always tell the story that it was under the amber lights of that marina, right? And I was standing in the same place where about a decade before I had lost the very first carp I ever hooked into at the exact same marina. So 10 years later, here I was, a man, right? I'd gone from a boy to a man and had ascended. And basically the rest of that season, I pursued carp alongside other species. And then very soon it was like I weaned myself off of other species. And now I would say with confidence that, I mean, if you look at my collection above my head and all the other gear I've got over here, I'd say I've gone the direction of a carper now. I think I'm a proper carper. I might be a naughty to some, and some of my friends would too call me a naughty, but it is what it is. Can't change their opinion, Paul.
I tell you what, just on that, and I can't believe, fishing for me is all about enjoyment, and some of the distasteful names that are and labels that are given are pretty miserable. As long as you're going out there enjoying it and people are helping each other. So, was this gentleman, was he an expat or was he actually a Canadian gent?
He was a Canadian, but he had a positive experience with some expats that frequented Peterborough. So I don't know how aware you are of this, but a lot of expats come to Canada on an annual basis. A number of people that are good friends of mine that I've met through the grapevine, and many, many, many years ago, there was a gentleman by the name of Tony that was up this way that used to run guiding operations all up and down the Otonabee. There was a gentleman by the name of Mike and his wife Eileen that owned Lakeside Cottages, which is literally a hop, skip, and jump away from here. And he was an expat, and I believe they've moved back to Britain now. But they were here, and I think they packed up shop truthfully during COVID. I think that's when they decided to call it. But they'd been running a guide service and, you know, an accommodation for a decade, 15 years prior to that. So, I mean, they had, you know, Englishmen coming almost every single year to the Peterborough and the Kawarthas region. So,
I think
I mean,
the venue that really kind of resonates with most people in the UK, if you're talking Canada and to some extent America, is the St. Lawrence. I mean,
yeah,
you know, that is chaotic on there, isn't
it
it?
It can be, but the St. Lawrence can also be one of the most like testing waters in terms of your patience. Like as a Brit, I mean, you people have happily sat for 24 hours twiddling your thumbs waiting for a bite to come, and it never happens. And sometimes you wait all weekend. Sometimes you wait half a season. But you know, in on the St. Lawrence, the thing is that it is shut down for 24 straight hours, and you think, oh, they're never going to show up, and then when they finally do, they show up by the thousands, right? So
Mm.
you literally have fish on you and it's non-stop. Like there are stories. I've heard stories of 100 fish in 6 hours between like
Yeah,
a couple of guys. You know what I mean? Like it just when they show up, it's you can't stop them. You throw a rig in and it's hitting. It's not even hitting the ground and it's going off in your hand. Like you haven't even flipped the bail arm over and the fish has it. Right? Like it's crazy. And we don't see quite those numbers here in the Peterborough and Kawarthas region, but I would say our averages are higher. You know, by and large, because there's fewer fish, there's less competition, the fish are getting bigger. So we do have probably a 16-pound average, I would say, for a lot of the lakes I have around here. 14 to 16 pounds is the average fish. But I mean, a lot of people might be like, oh, 14, 16 pounds. No, 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 no. 14 to 16 pound wild carp. It is not
yeah,
the same
exactly.
fish. Not the same
That's
fish at all.
that's a torpedo on steroids. Unfortunately, a lot of our fish, they are, you know, yeah. I mean, I've never been into. I've caught some big fish, and it's nice to see big fish up close and personal. But I must admit, I've more been in balance kit, having a good fight and a pretty looking fish. That's where really I'm coming from. But you
Mm-hmm.
obviously, there, these are wild fish. They're not like the stockies that we have throughout the UK. We don't have. You know, people might say there's, you know, wild carp out there in the UK. You know, they came over with the monks a few centuries ago, and there might be a few knocking around, but in the main, you know, they are either stockfish or stockfish that have escaped and got into the rivers with the floods and things like that. But I think
Yeah.
that's the amazing thing, because over here people say, oh, you know, carp are getting fat because of the boilies and things like that. And I don't dispute, as long as the boilie's got a food content, that will have some uh, you know, some kind of results on their weight gain. But over there, you have got literally the size of the country, a handful of carp anglers, and these millions of carp, they're just feeding on naturals, aren't they?
Yeah, and I mean, you've got some of our Great Lakes. You think about what's the potential of our Great Lakes when you have Superior, and I think like between all of the Great Lakes, it's like 30 million acres of water, right? So you think about how much natural food there is in those bodies of water. Yes, you heard that right. 30 million acres, folks. That's no puddle, right? That's a ton of food that is accessible to them, and you know, once again, you find them in pods of 100 on some of these waters, so you know there has to be enough food for that pod to stay together, you know, to hunt basically together, so to speak. And you see them charging in on bait fish piles, which a lot of people I think in the UK might be shocked to hear that our carp, and probably a lot of, you know, carp in the UK too, they'll feed on silvers if they can
Without doubt.
fit it in their mouth, it's going right. So
It's food, isn't it? They, you know, at the end of the day, well, I'm just showing you a prawn. I've caught plenty of carps on prawns. That's a
absolutely.
natural. And so's a small fish or fry or whatever. When you first started fishing, what was the thing that? Sorry, there's a couple of lots of craze in the summer. Yeah, over in Canada. Ian says he loved playing the fish rather than just. Yeah, that's why I did a thing about these 4-pound test curve rods the other day. I just in my head, I just can't see how you can enjoy the fight on a 4-pound test curve rod. And Dave Clifford, welcome, sir. Hope you're well. Yes, I've seen them charge. Yeah, so Lee does a lot of perch and predator fishing, and he's seen them. But yeah, so what was your main influence, do you think? So you met this guy, saw these fish, thought, wow, that's a bit bigger than some of the stuff I'm catching, or yada yada, different way of catching it. So what was the main influence that was behind? Because you say 10 years you've been involved with it.
Yeah, so I think the big thing for me was when I discovered it, it was just a nice I guess watching the other fish species in the area that I was fishing in, like I was seeing a lot of pressure on them, and a lot of these fish were starting to wisen up, right? Like the ones that have been caught and released a few times, they were just watching the jig and then right? So I was like, well, the carp seem to be under pressured, and they seem to be something that I can sit back and relax. And I was in university at the time as well, so it was quite useful that I could bring a book with me and do my studies and just
Yeah.
leave a rod there. And I didn't have the alarms in that first year, so I used to just leave the rod. There was a spot. It was a little cafe, and it had a little dock on the waterfront. And I used to take the rod and I put it in the dock on the dock, and I put the bail arm into the panels of wood, drop the drag real low, and I would sit there and read my book, and then I just listen for that zzz, right, and just charge off and fight them
Yes,
away. I was using 7 foot rods back then, right? But
that, that's such a
watching
good
them was
set,
fun.
though. I used to fish. I still do every now and again, but I used to fish. The first time I ever did it was Horseshoe Lake, which is the Carp Starters Lake. And somebody said to me, that's the great thing about fishing. People can genuinely and do genuinely want to help. And they said, look, don't take your alarms. Just walk round this, And for us, it's a big lake. It's like 64 acres or something like that. That's a big. Simon Brown, Simon Ossel, good evening, welcome. And that was the first time. So we're talking 25 years ago. God, old. And literally, like I say, you put a couple of rods out and you just sit there and you just listen. No alarms, nothing. You just listen to that, and the adrenaline you get off
Oh
that is amazing.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I picked up alarms. What would have been 2014. I got my first set of alarms, and that was the game changer, right? Because then suddenly I could be away from the rods just a little bit, or I could be tying rigs, and even in a windy day or in a bivvy with rain hammering down, I'd still get an indication. I'd still be able to hear it, right? So, I mean, the allure of carp fishing to me was, I think it was just the time of it all, to be honest. It could have been anything that really did it, but I was just at that time. I was alone, university, living on my own in my own apartment, and I had the work which had me doing all kinds of crazy hours, and I just needed something to kill the time so that I wouldn't spend so much time in the pubs. And so off I went with with this little 7 foot medium action rod, 10 to 25 pound. I think it was rated for whatever, little size 4,000 reel. And that first year, I think I had about 50 carp. To be honest, it wasn't But then I wasn't using all the stuff that is fish safety. I don't mind showing those images of those times where I was young, dumb, didn't know that you shouldn't be holding carp from gills, shouldn't be standing up with fish. But no one told me until I was probably about two-thirds of the way through that first year. I had a couple of Canadian carp anglers that really kind of reached out to me and said, that's not, you probably shouldn't do that, and you should probably consider getting a mat. So by the time, I think it was towards the end of 2013, I was at least putting my thumb in its mouth, holding it like this, squatting on the ground, right? So then it was like 2014, the year I say the carp, I became a carper. I got my first carp rod, got all that business, and then suddenly I was actually ascending past someone who was just fishing for them and was becoming a carp angler, right? And then I
You
just
were
dove right in.
becoming, you were becoming
I
obsessed. We've all been.
Yes, yes. And now I have so much crap. I mean, you could probably see it behind me there. All those rods up there. I've got reels and boxes. Oy vey, hold on a sec. I'm looking like you, Palm. I'm scattered. Things are falling everywhere. I had this perfectly balanced. There we go. And yeah, I mean, I've got reels and boxes still that are looking for rods to pair with, and running the guide service and everything. I need to have a nice variety of things. So I've got 10 foot rods, I've got 12 foot rods, and varying test curves for if I need to take out some kids and I want to put them on smaller fish or whatever. I've got the 10 footers, which are great because obviously I'm not expecting a kid to pick up a rod and fight a 30-pound carp every time. So if I can get them on something smaller, that's ideal. So give me a sec. There we go. So anyhow,
Good
yeah.
evening, John Pierce. Good evening, John Pierce. Yeah, we were talking about Anthony's mentioning the spool on the coin on the spool of early days bite detection.
Yeah, yeah.
What? So you do this carping, guiding for carp. So somebody would email you, phone you, whatever. And so what would that entail? What would you actually do as a guide for them?
So as a guide. If you're someone who's coming over from the UK, let's say you're an experienced angler, what I would offer is a tutorial package. So you'd essentially come over. If you had your gear, great. If you didn't and needed to, borrow some from me, I have some, and I have a rental for that product. And they'd come out. I'd get them out on a bank side, and if you're doing the tutorial, I have like a 3-hour package. Basically, I would sit down with you. I'd put my rods in next to you. Blah 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 blah. I tell you what rigs are working in this area, like based on the bottom composition. So I take away a lot of that guesswork for you, and I kind of tell you, all right, I've plumbed here. I know that there's a snag off here. There's a drop off here. Edge of the current seems a good bet. You're going to have a bit of a change in the flow when they start opening or closing the locks and the dams and such, and so on and so forth if we're fishing a river. And then on top of that, I'll say, okay, and I've pre-baited. So all my tutorial, all my guiding packages come with a pre-baiting situation, which always is particle, because it's cheap and it works. So, I mean, I absolutely fill in particle into a spot, because you could put out a 5-gallon pail of maize and it could be gone in an hour. You know what I mean? So
just to jump in, when you say particle, because obviously we use all different kinds of particles, is maize your go-to one, or do you use some of the other ones?
I use a lot of crack corn, which is flaked maize. I think that if you want to know my secret, Palm, for particle, it blew away Matt Hayes when he was here. White rice.
Right. Okay.
White rice.
Okay, you're not used to
and
that.
flaked corn, and the reason is because white rice looks like maggots. And like Matt was blown away. He said, "I can't believe we haven't thought of this before. Put a pint of maggots in, mix in a kilo of white rice, and turn it all together." And he says, and then toss it out with some, and obviously rice can take on whatever flavor you throw with it. Put some sriracha in there and some, chili and hemp oil, and away it flies. Right? It crushes. But I like using my white rice. It creates a really nice starchy, cloud that you can kind of watch. And if you're fishing a river, sometimes, depending on where you're casting to, you might find different flows. So if you can cast and watch that cloud go down and then develop and then see, it seems to be spinning out faster out here. Okay, so there's the edge of that current seam if we're ever having difficulty, or we need to know how far down is it drifting, over, say, a 10-foot hole. Is it going 10 yards downriver with that cloud? Because if so, then I know that my bait's kind of laying down like this, and I should be casting down here even though I baited up here, kind of thing, right? I like using that. And then whole corn's obviously a fantastic bait as well. We go down to the farm and feed stores, and we pick up cattle maize, boil it for half an hour, 45 minutes, throw it in a cooler. I use like a Coleman cooler, and I just throw it in there, shut the lid down, and by the next morning it's like squishy with the fingers, right? Which is exactly what you want to see. Then you can add in your molasses, you can add in your brown sugar, whatever you choose. I like pineapple juice and chili powder or sriracha. I like that combination of sweet and spicy. I find that it seems to trigger the olfactory and gets them going. So that's how I would offer what I'd offer to my clientele, so that when they come out, they have a swim that's got food in it. Once again, the smaller particles keeps them in there for longer. They're seeking those individual food pieces out for a lot longer than throwing out a kilo of boilies. So, yeah.
So the Mennonites provide us with the seed?
Yes, Kenny. So Kenny, that's a buddy of mine, Kenny, down in southern Ontario. Yeah, he provides. He does hemp seeds. He does hemp seed with his as well.
Yeah, hemp. Wow, that's what I did in that method mix earlier. I've got my hemp in there. Hemp, we use red band, which is like a pigeon condition, which is a multi-seed. And like you say, it's cheap and it works. And so many people, Ian saying, "What's rice sales rocket?" You're going to invest in the rice market now, are you, Ian? So, a couple of questions from me that always, and I've asked these to Galen and Dan, and Vince is slightly different because he's an expat. But why hasn't, because carp fishing is an international language. Wherever you go, if somebody, an angler experiences carp fishing, I don't think many would go, "I'm never doing that again." Lots of them, they like all the aspects of it. Why hasn't it gained traction in Canada like it potentially could? Because you're such an outside, your families go fishing. It's a huge outside community, and and obviously you've got your bass and such like being the predominant market. Why don't you think carp fishing has been, or getting the traction it could get?
I got three-part answer to that question. Number one, you have a story that's been passed down, a stigma, right? That has been passed down from generation to generation to generation. Because when the common carp was first introduced here in the late 1800s, it was done as a means of a food source for Eastern Europeans, the influx of Eastern Europeans that were immigrating into North America. I've done a lot of research on this. I've written university papers on this, so I do have quite a bit of knowledge about this. So what you have is that fish, and it also gets anti-Semitic as well, because Jewish people consume common carp, and it's called gefilte fish, right? It's a sacred dish to the Jewish community as well. So Eastern European and Jewish populations, I separate them because at one point they were looked upon as different peoples, but there are sacred dishes to certain countries and certain ethnicities and certain religions. And so the common carp became a food staple for them. And then, so it was looked upon as being, that's not my fish, right? So everyone else was pursuing the trout. They were pursuing the walleye and the bass, the pike, so on and so forth. And so people became like, I guess they alienated the carp from their diet as a potential food source, even though that was why it was being brought over here to begin with, was to sort of offset the amount of pressure that was being put on these other species. And so when the carp broke out of their ponds that they were being stocked into, particularly around the Hudson River in New York, it took off and found no pressure, no predation, nothing as it entered the Great Lakes and just went everywhere, right? The Trent Severn system and the lock system provided them with an easy means of getting up into the Kawarthas and so on and so forth. So by the 1900s, early 1920s, you literally see papers coming out, and the Canadian government is saying, kill them all. Right? Kill them all, net them all. They're using dynamite. In the States, they're going as far as using rotenone, which is the most toxic marine poison known to man, to eliminate carp and every living thing out of a water body just to get rid of the carp. And so we know that, up until the 50s, there was this big push, right? And it's a big push, it's a big push, it's a big push. And by the time the 70s come around, we start seeing that there's other aquatic invaders. And then someone opens up a carp in the St. Lawrence and sees that there's zebra mussels inside their belly. And that completely changes the attitude. But we're talking the 70s, Palm, right? It took until the 70s, but that message of common carp eat zebra mussels, when I talk to the layman here in my country, they don't know that. So part one of this entire thing is misinformation, right? And there's also that allure of bow fishing to hunters, because they think they're doing something on behalf of conservation, but they actually don't know what they're doing at all, right? They don't understand that one carp can eat like 200 zebra mussels a day. Like, they don't comprehend that. And so
sorry,
right?
sorry to jump in there, and that's a positive.
Absolutely it is. The zebra mussels were introduced from Eurasia. They compete with our native mussel species, but regardless, keeping them in check is really important, because when the zebra mussel population, so the carp died off here in 2007 it was, sorry. We had a huge carp die off. Koi herpesvirus broke out and took out 60 to 70% of the population of carp in the Kawarthas, is the estimate of the Ministry of Natural Resources. And the zebra mussel population took off. Walleye populations, much to your Xander, went straight down. And then other things started falling out of suit as well. Smallmouth bass didn't really get affected that much. But so a lot of it's misinformation, Palm. They think carp are invasive, which is a real problem as well, because it's not invasive. It's introduced and recognized as naturalized now by the MNR. The MNR, even our ministry, recognizes it's a naturalized species. And, people think carp are the most invasive fish on the planet. It's not. It's the smallmouth bass. It's the rainbow trout. Carp are on that list, but the common carp is not the most invasive fish.
Well,
goldfish are higher on that list.
We have, obviously, our heritage, again, is they were introduced from the monks, like you say, as a lot of
12th
farming.
century, yeah. We're talking 800 years ago for you guys, right? 900 years.
You've got your monks, you've got these stew ponds and things like that. But like Kenneth's just pointed out there, Australia, I thought they're actually doing this, but Australia's planning to release a koi, which is koi herpesvirus, to deal with the carp. But the irony, I suppose, is like you say, it's bad rep, it's misinterpretation of information, loads of assumptions, and people say to me about carp being invasive, and obviously they can take over as the predominant feeder in a water. But I tell you what, if you when I was fishing, when I was like, you know, a nipper, like 10 years old and things like that, and if carp are that bad, we never had 20-pound barbel all the time. We didn't have 5-pound perch coming to the forefront. You might have got the odd fish and everyone's going, wow. But now they're everywhere, and carp are everywhere as well.
Yep.
So I think we could be very,
Tom,
very quick
I'm
to
a
criticize.
firm believer. I'm a firm believer that if you let nature decide, nature's going to figure it out. Instead of letting man get in the way, every time man sticks his fingers in crap, it ends up
goes wrong.
worse than it was. So, like with that, you know, I look at it and I say, you know, common carp are this naturalized fish, and you know, I literally have papers from universities where they tried to prove that carp were detrimental to ecosystems and that they would affect the size and populations of fish. They disproved the theory of it causing harm to fish populations. Fish size got smaller, but they accumulated that to the fact that there was more biomass in the pond. Right, and they went, so it makes sense that their fish would all grow smaller. There's carp in this one, there's not carp in this one, but the two, they literally went and did like statistics on it and said, you know, the smallmouth that are in both, or largemouth, I think it was actually largemouth in both these ponds, numbers were negligible difference. So it is, and then of course they increase the turbidity. Well, so do the boats. Right, like the boats coming in and out of our waterways increase turbidity. It's not just carp during spawning time. You know, look at some of these, and they say, well, carp are uprooting all the vegetation. I've been to Pads, Palm. I fished Pads Lake in the UK, and in the freaking winter there was a lot of weeds in that lake. Right, like, oh, and there's 100 carp in it in 4 acres. You're telling me that they uproot all the vegetation? Bollocks, right? Anyhow,
but the trouble is, it's all, so much of fishing nowadays is based on assumption, as is fishery management. And you know, obviously, as you know, I own my own fisheries. You know, I'd like to think I try to educate myself as much as possible. I totally agree with you. Nature has finding its way to check and balance. But the thing is, especially with social media, you get this plethora of different kind of misinformation comes from all that, and it's become a confused mess. And the fact is that carp in some quarters do get vilified. It's just such a shame, because you know it's
really
God's planet, and these fish are just tremendous sport. They're very hardy, you know, they're stunning fish, and they pull that string.
I don't know how anyone in the Kawarthas. And this is the thing, right? So that's part one, is that there's this misinformation it's been passed down, and at one point they were problematic. It's not so much anymore. Things have found balance. It's taken 100 years, but we're there, right? And so you get that in, but like you still have so many other species, right? And the allure of what our television programs are doing, because once again there's that generational thing. You have these guys that are doing fly-in fishing trips into the northern of Ontario, right, where there's no roads. And so like the dream thing for an angler to do is go up to Algoma County, right, and fly fish for trout that have never seen people in their lives, right? Which is like, that's cool, right? Like I'd be down to do that.
Because you know, I've been to Canada a few times, and I should definitely be coming back at some stage. That's the plan. But one thing is always thought, I wonder how far the carp are up, where you can go into these really, really kind of, you know, the true wilderness and actually go carp fishing. And so how far do they go up?
So in Ontario, anyhow, I think the farthest north that you can really find them is getting into like Upper Lake Superior, and maybe a few tributaries off of Lake Superior. So unfortunately, I don't have a map here, but if you look at Lake Superior, it's enormous. But Thunder Bay and all around there's carp that far north. And you can fish for them. It's just that it starts getting so unbelievably cold up there for the most part that, you know, you're probably starting your fishing season in May and the water's 40, 50 Fahrenheit. Like it's cold there then, and then by the time October, November comes around, I mean the water's so big that it does hold its temperature at deeper levels. So if you got 8 to 10 feet, you could probably still fish them until like late September, early October. But you usually get those first frosts up there by mid-October, and it starts getting really uncomfortable really fast. But you can fish Upper Lake Superior for sure for carp in Ontario.
I hear, because it's the same here with us. We've got the power stations on the rivers and things like that. pumping in warm water in the winter, and the fish just hauled up. You know, if you can get a swim opposite, you know, the outlet. Is that the same there? Is there some spots that they keep going?
Yeah. Yeah, we have a few spots that do produce warm water. There's regulations on how much of a difference they're allowed to put in, particularly because of the fact that if you increase the water temperature, you're increasing potential for algae growth and whatnot. So they're trying to slow down things like the blue-green algae blooms because we have had some pretty warm summers. So they're trying to create more of an opportunity for the cold water to come through and kill off some of that algae so that it doesn't continue to, you know, proliferate, I suppose, and continue to keep going. So I think the maximum they can increase is like, I think they can have maybe 5 degrees Celsius water pumping out, but that's probably about it. But that's enough. If you can find those spots, that's more than enough for these fish to stack up there. And,
exactly.
you know, you can still get those bite windows. I've got friends that are still catching carp right now. And I mean, it's minus 20 degrees today outside, for God's sake. And my friend Peter Weldon's probably out right now somewhere in the GTA in the Greater Toronto area. And he's probably having a carp right now. The man he's been our diehard, most hardcore angler on the Canadian Carp Society. This is his second year in a row now being nominated for it because he's retired and he gets to live that life. Lucky bugger.
We get about 10 degrees here, and we all go, "Oh, we're not going out in that. It's freezing." And to you, it's probably Speedo weather.
10 degrees, I'd still be carping every day.
Oh no, I mean, to be fair, this is fishing weather in this country at the moment. Warm, wild, and windy this time of the year. You know, it really does get them going. But it's just I've just been so busy. Even though I can literally hop, skip, and jump at you know one of my pools, the banks. But yeah, the intention is to get out and do a bit over the Christmas period because we will naturally slow up. Before we go, because it's hitting the 8 o'clock, and as long as you're happy for another 10 minutes or so. Absolutely. So you met Pallatrax, I believe, through Galen, who's been involved with us for a long time. And really smashing lad. We've been very lucky, or I've been very lucky to meet you guys. I think it's, you know, your passion and it really shines through. But so you're going to be hooking up a little bit more with Galen this year or in 2025. So what's your plans then for 2025?
Well, I'm getting married in August of 2025, so I'm planning on getting a fishing done between now and then.
That's the end of your fishing then?
No. Oh no! She loves coming fishing with me. She'll oftentimes target the perch while I've got a carp rod in. So yeah, we have lots of fun. So yeah, anyhow, I'm going to be hooking up with Galen, Vince, and the Pattison brothers. We're going to probably hit up Vince's place. I put in Vince's docks.
Oh,
so yeah. So I'm the one who does the docks. So as soon as I can get out there, we get to go fishing. Is essentially how it works. I hold Vince hostage some years when it's like really cold, because sometimes we have Aprils where it's like and even beginnings of Mays where it's But I think looking at the pattern for this year, we might have a reasonable middle to end of April. So anyhow, we'll be doing a fishing trip up there. Hopefully, all of us together do a nice little team social up on the island. We'll document that entire thing.
Can you
just not too windy,
just explain, because obviously there's new people here as well as old. Vince's dock, the famous Vince's dock on Rice Lake.
If you want to catch more carp than you thought humanly possible, Vince has an island on Rice Lake, which is one of the greatest carp fisheries in the Kawarthas, beyond a reasonable doubt. It's about 60,000 acres, I think it is. And where he has 2 access points to the island. So his property runs from the east side to the west side. The east side is sheltered, it's shallow, it's an amazing spring fishing spot, and until it weeds up. Once it weeds up, it's completely unfishable, unless you're in there with a rake, which is illegal. Anyway, and then the west side, he's got some access to some deeper water, some rockier water, and the wind hammers in on that west. The westerlies are smashing in all the time there. And so if you go to Vince's place, I've been to Vince's place. I did a video there for my 30th birthday, and it was like August, and you'd think it's slowing down. We still had so many fish, Palm, and all of listeners, and I've been there and fished it in June. And I remember waking up at 5 in the morning. I got out there. Vince is already been putting out scoops of bait. We he comes and picks me up. We head out, and I think between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. we had 25 fish or something stupid like that, and that was running one rod each. And it was just the number of fish that show up. It's incomprehensible.
Is
And
it
I don't
really
know.
clear? Is it really clear, the lake?
Well,
Or
it can be fairly clear, but a lot of the times when those westerlies are pushing in, it's pulling sediment back in, and there's boats. There's lots of boats that go across that west side, 'cause that's where the open water and the canal, the markers, so that you're in the safe zone. Amanda's actually in the comments right now. That's my fiance, and she's saying
oh,
that she had a
hi
wonderful
Amanda.
time. So many fish. Yeah, so I mean, Vince's
Make
place.
sure. So has Amanda joined Team Pallatrax? Because we're really proactive getting ladies on board.
Well, I could get her to join on. She
Join,
she
especially if
fishes
she's
she
got.
fishes for so many things.
Yeah, exactly. And we, like I say, I personally, I'll stand here to be beaten down. We're too chauvinistic in angling over here. I think it's possibly most blokes will worry because women make such good anglers. So do join Amanda and show us some of these perch you'll be catching. And congratulations on getting married.
Oh, she's getting married to me. Don't congratulate her, Pom.
It was going through my head. How can I be sympathetic here? How can I be? So, because you're going to do quite a bit of underwater filming, because
Yeah.
that takes some discipline. That's the problem. There's a lot of people here, and we've tried to do it, and the pull of actually fishing compared to filming seems to override it. But Galen's got his head on there, and you're going to be working with him on that.
It's crazy. When Galen and I did our underwater shot together there on my channel, that was painstaking, right? Because we're sitting there, I'm watching fish crash over the swim, I'm seeing them swim through, I'm thinking, I just want to put a rod in, and Galen's like, oh, just wait, and he throws the underwater camera down, and we watch a mirror swim across the screen. That was the first fish we saw, was this beautiful mirror, and I'm like, oh my god, right? And then from there onward, it was like we just couldn't stop staring at the screen because we had so many fish in front of us, in that section. And it's a section that's got a lot of fish in it, but 3 mirrors appeared on that camera that day, which was unheard of. Like, Galen's never seen that many mirrors. And then for us to catch one of the elusive Canadian mirrors, probably 1 in 100 fish. Or better for some people. Some people still are waiting on that first mirror, and they've been, in Canada for 10 plus years, expats even, they'll know what they're doing. And so I remember, seeing that mirror come down, right down on top of that shot on the hook rig, bam, got him, right? It was just like, it was unbelievable. So I can see the allure
Just
of it.
quickly, give a shout out for your YouTube channel, because obviously you've got quite a lot of content on there. I'm sure a lot of us would like to see it. So what's your YouTube channel called?
Yeah, so I mean, if you look up Will Machette, my name's in the comment chain here. I also go on YouTube. You can go youtube.com/Peterborough Carping. Just don't omit the guides. Just Peterborough Carping. You can find me on social media through Instagram and whatnot as well. And yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of videos up there. I do a lot of storytelling. If you can't tell, I got the gift of gab, Pom. So I like to talk, and a lot of my talking.
Actually browbeaten for once. I'm not actually steering the conversation. You're a natural.
Well, I mean, I'm a teacher as well, right? So if there's anything that teachers like to do, they like to yap as well. But for some of my stuff, it's talking about the story of angling, the journey of angling. I'm not someone out here pushing product in people's faces. I'm not big on that, right? I don't like to tell people that this will catch you more fish than that product. That's bollocks. It's like Matt Hayes told me once, and it's something that guided my angling. And I know people have their opinions of Matt, but I have a positive one, because he told me once. I remember I brought all this gear. I was so excited to show him all. He says, "Mate, don't tell me what you're fishing with. Show me what you catch with it." And I went, oh,
yeah, exactly.
And that changed everything, right? It made me stop thinking about being a part of a brand that's making me push a product that is trying to say it's better. That's like a rod that's better than another rod. Or
you can have the best gun in the world, don't mean you're going to hit the target. So it's like, look at my super duper rifle. Well, can you hit the target? And,
yeah. Well, exactly.
That's the thing that counts. But Will, I'm going to have to make a move. I really appreciate you popping in on short notice, and I thank you for all of us. We will do this again without a shadow of doubt, because all we've done is scratch the surface of your experiences out there, haven't we?
absolutely. I could tell some incredible stories, Pom.
Yeah, well, no, we're all up for that. Do be active on the team page. I know you are, and spread the word. Post your YouTube channel up on there frequently to get people to know about what you're doing. And have a wonderful Christmas. Best to you and Amanda, and we'll speak to you on the other side. Yeah.
Right on. Merry Christmas, Pom. Merry Christmas to everyone. Much love, and we'll see you in 2025.
Brilliant. Cheers. Take care. Right, I will just finish off quickly. Will, you're still... Oh, no, Will's gone now. He's probably seeing me. So we have the winner. I recognise the name as well. It's not Matt Rice, the winner of tonight's... Oh, look at me, I can't even get it all. Tonight's prize on the draw. Let me turn this around so you can read it. It is Anthony Broden. Well done, Anthony. Congratulations. Ping me or ping Facebook a message with your details and we will get your prize off to you. So yeah, really good that from Will. Very, very interesting bloke. Because to be quite honest, you know, carp fishing over there is relatively new in the big scheme of things, and I think also what I found is they're not as browbeaten by some of the major brands. They're very open-minded in how they fish and what they're doing, and their fisheries out there, like you're just saying, you know, 60,000 acres is Rice Lake. Like, you know, my biggest pool down here was just shy of an acre, so different thing. But also over there, and what I would really like to do is it's all the other species. They're just you know, the pike, you know, oh, it's incredible. And so yeah, we'll get a lot more coming in from that. But I'm out of here, folks. I've got folks coming round, so I'm going to have to disappear and be polite. But if I don't talk to any of you here, we are the pioneers. You go and get them, Kenneth. You tell the stories. It's good stuff. We love all this stuff. You know, it's fishing, and as I always say, angling is an international language. But yeah, everybody have a fantastic Christmas. Stay safe, be good. I'll be back on the next live feed next Sunday. We will have to make a Christmas draw. If you've got any questions, obviously always feel free to reach out to me via the office or Facebook or whatever. But thanks for coming in this evening, and like I say, have a fantastic Christmas and a happy and healthy 2025. Cheers, folks.